Rachel Meyer's phone stopped ringing on an ordinary Thursday night, and by Friday morning, the town of Brookfield would never sleep peacefully again. What began as a simple case of a missing woman soon unraveled into a web of deceit, corruption, and betrayal stretching far beyond anyone's imagination. Every clue pointed toward someone she trusted. Every lead exposed another layer of lies. Behind her silence hid secrets powerful enough to destroy careers, and the closer investigators came to the truth, the more dangerous the game became. When her phone went dead, Rachel's story had only just begun. On a quiet autumn morning, the town of Brookfield woke to a strange silence that few noticed at first. 28-year-old Rachel Meyer, known among her friends for her early texts and cheerful calls, had gone silent overnight. The group chat that usually lit up with her messages stayed empty, and her phone, which she never let out of sight, went unanswered for hours. Her mother, who lived across town, thought Rachel might be working late again, but as the days slipped into night and still there was no word, worry began to take hold. Rachel's routine was predictable, almost to a fault. She worked at a small graphic design agency, clocking out at exactly 6 every evening. Her coworkers said she often stayed a little longer, finishing projects in the glow of her computer screen while the rest of the office went dark. On the night she vanished, she left the office later than usual. The security cameras caught her exiting the building at 10:32 p.m., holding her phone in one hand and her car keys in the other. She looked tired, maybe a little distracted, as if something was weighing on her mind. That was the last confirmed sighting of her. The next morning, her car was found parked along a narrow road just outside of town near Miller's Creek. It sat there quietly, doors unlocked, engine cold. Her purse was still inside, along with her wallet and ID, but the phone that had stopped ringing was nowhere to be found. There were no signs of struggle, no footprints, no broken glass. Just an eerie stillness that made investigators uneasy. The ground was damp from the previous night's rain, and tire tracks from several other cars had already blurred any useful evidence. Detective Maria Holden, assigned to the case, found the scene unsettling. She noted the careful placement of Rachel's belongings, the absence of chaos that usually accompanied an abduction. Everything about it felt deliberate. Forensics combed through every inch of the vehicle, but found nothing that led to a suspect. No fingerprints other than Rachel's, no DNA, not even a hair strand out of place. The investigation soon turned to Rachel's digital trail. Her last known phone activity was a call made at 10:47 p.m., just 15 minutes after she was seen leaving work. The call had lasted only 45 seconds before disconnecting abruptly. The recipient's number was unknown, registered under a prepaid SIM card that couldn't be traced. Moments later, her phone's GPS signal began moving away from town, traveling along the highway toward Miller's Creek before stopping completely. By the end of that day, Rachel Meyer was officially declared missing. Flyers appeared across Brookfield, her smiling face staring from lampposts and store windows. News outlets picked up the story, calling it another mystery disappearance, though the locals sensed something darker. People began recalling strange details. Someone had seen a truck parked near her office that night. Another had heard loud footsteps near the creek. Nothing was certain, but one thing was clear. When Rachel's phone stopped ringing, something in Brookfield broke its silence too. As investigators dug deeper into Rachel Meyer's life, it became clear that her disappearance wasn't a random act. Behind her quiet and organized lifestyle was a woman living with secrets most people never suspected. Her coworkers described her as polite, focused, and a bit distant. She rarely joined them for drinks after work, often saying she had things to finish at home. No one thought much of it until detectives found out what those things actually were. Inside her apartment, police uncovered a second computer, a small, encrypted laptop hidden beneath the false bottom of a drawer. It took days for digital forensics to unlock it, but when they did, a very different side of Rachel's life began to surface. She wasn't just a graphic designer. She was the anonymous author of a blog that exposed corruption in local businesses. The blog had gained quiet attention for its accuracy and detail, often revealing internal documents that only an insider could possess. The most recent posts focused on a construction company known as Merritt and Sons Development, a powerful firm behind several government contracts in the area. Rachel's posts accused the company of bribery, illegal dumping, and forging environmental permits. What unsettled investigators most was her final blog entry. It mentioned that she had something that could destroy careers and that she would release it soon. But that post went live only a few hours before she disappeared. When detectives checked the timestamp, they realized she must have uploaded it right before leaving work that night. It felt less like coincidence and more like a trigger. The digital evidence didn't stop there. In her email drafts folder, they found an unsent message addressed to a local investigative journalist named Thomas Reed. The message contained a list of names, payment records, and references to files attached, but the attachments were missing. It appeared someone had accessed her computer remotely and deleted them after she vanished. The mystery grew darker. Who knew about her secret life, and who had the power to erase her traces so quickly? Friends admitted that Rachel had seemed nervous in the weeks before she disappeared. She had mentioned being watched and someone following her car, though she laughed it off as paranoia. Her apartment building's security cameras, checked after the fact, showed a black sedan parked across the street multiple nights in a row. The license plate led to a rental company, but the name on the paperwork was fake. As the investigation expanded, the construction company publicly denied all allegations. Their spokesperson dismissed the blog as fiction written by a disgruntled ex-employee. Yet when detectives contacted the firm, one name stood out: Evan Porter, a subcontractor who had worked closely on several of the projects Rachel had exposed. Porter's work history was full of irregularities, and he'd been fired just 2 weeks before her final blog post. The puzzle pieces were beginning to form a picture. Rachel hadn't vanished without reason. She had been silenced. Her digital footprint told the story of someone closing in on a dangerous truth, unaware that someone was already watching, waiting for her phone to stop ringing forever. 3 weeks after Rachel Meyer's disappearance, the search seemed to be losing momentum. Volunteers had combed the woods near Miller's Creek. Police had drained part of the shallow riverbank, and flyers hung faded in store windows. Every lead ended in a dead end until a fisherman reported finding something half buried in mud along the creek's edge. It was a cracked phone case, pink with a worn-out sticker, and inside was a water-damaged smartphone. Despite the dirt and moisture, the serial number confirmed it belonged to Rachel. Detectives treated the discovery as a major breakthrough. Forensic technicians carefully dried and recovered fragments of the phone's data. Most of the files were corrupted, but one folder contained several deleted images that hadn't fully erased. Among them was a partially recovered photograph showing the reflection of a man standing near a dark-colored truck. The photo appeared to have been taken from inside a car window, and though his face was blurred, one identifying detail stood out: a logo on his jacket reading Merritt and Sons Development. That logo led investigators straight to Evan Porter, a subcontractor who had worked for the company for nearly 5 years. Evan was known locally as quiet but temperamental, someone who kept to himself and didn't talk much about his job. When police first approached him, he claimed he had only met Rachel once, briefly, during a presentation his team attended at her office months earlier. He appeared calm, but small inconsistencies in his story drew suspicion. He said he hadn't been anywhere near Brookfield the night Rachel disappeared. Yet security footage from a nearby gas station showed his truck passing through the area less than an hour after her last phone signal. Investigators obtained a warrant to search his property. In his garage, they found burned scraps of paper, charred fragments of folders, and the remains of several external hard drives. Forensics identified one partially melted drive as belonging to the same model Rachel had owned. Evans said he had been getting rid of old work materials, but the timing was too convenient. The discovery painted him as a man trying to destroy something incriminating. As the investigation deepened, a troubling connection emerged. Witnesses recalled seeing Evans' truck near Miller's Creek on multiple occasions before Rachel vanished. One local resident remembered a man matching his description sitting in the driver's seat late at night, headlights off, watching the road. Evan's work records showed he had been suspended from the company just days before Rachel published her final blog post. Detective Holden began to suspect that Rachel had gotten too close to exposing something tied to Evan's past. He had access to the company's internal logistics files, the same ones Rachel had referenced in her blog. Perhaps she had obtained her evidence through him, willingly or not. And when she started publishing, someone panicked. Despite the growing mountain of suspicion, the case remained circumstantial. No body, no witnesses, and no direct proof of foul play. But Holden couldn't shake the feeling that the creek had seen more than it revealed. The phone, half buried and silent, had resurfaced for a reason. It was as if Rachel herself had managed to leave one final message. The truth was still out there, waiting to be uncovered beneath the mud and lies that tried to bury it. Before investigators could move forward with charges against Evan Porter, he vanished. His landlord found his apartment door unlocked, the furniture gone, and a layer of dust settling on the windowsills. It was as though he had left in a hurry, leaving behind a trail that ended just as suddenly as Rachel Myers. His abandoned truck was discovered near the state border 2 days later, hidden behind a rest stop surrounded by pine trees. Inside, detectives found what looked like a confession note and several charred documents scattered on the passenger seat. The note, half-burned, mentioned guilt, fear, and an apology for what happened to her. It seemed like a clear admission, until a handwriting analyst confirmed it wasn't Evans. The revelation changed everything. Someone had gone to great lengths to stage his disappearance. The truck's contents appeared deliberately arranged to mislead investigators, suggesting that whoever was behind Rachel's vanishing was now eliminating anyone connected to the truth. Evans' last confirmed sighting came from a gas station attendant who said he looked terrified, constantly checking his mirrors as if being followed. After that, he was never seen again. As police retraced his steps, they uncovered new details about his connection to Merritt and Sons development. Evan had recently filed a complaint against the company, claiming he had been forced to handle illegal disposal operations. Internal emails later revealed that his supervisor, Cameron Lee, had threatened to terminate him if he spoke to the press. Cameron's name hadn't appeared in the investigation before, but as detectives began looking into him, it quickly became clear that he was far more involved than anyone realized. Cameron was Rachel's direct supervisor at the design firm where she worked. He had access to her computer, her schedule, and every project file she managed. It was through him that Merritt and Sons had originally hired Rachel's team for marketing work, giving him an excuse to pass sensitive materials between the company and the office without raising suspicion. Financial records revealed a series of unreported payments deposited into Cameron's account, large sums linked to shell companies owned by Merritt and Sons executives. It was bribery hidden in plain sight. Detective Holden began piecing together a chilling theory. Rachel must have discovered the connection between Cameron and Merritt and Sons while working on her blog. The proof that could destroy careers mentioned in her last post might have included documents tying Cameron directly to the firm's crimes. When she tried to go public, he would have had every reason to silence her and to shift the blame onto someone disposable like Evan Porter. The evidence against Cameron grew stronger when technicians recovered traces of remote access from his work computer to Rachel's hidden laptop. It showed he had logged into her system hours after her disappearance and wiped key files. But before detectives could confront him, Cameron submitted a sudden resignation and disappeared as well. His house was found empty, his phone disconnected. It felt like the investigation was collapsing under its own weight, every suspect vanishing into thin air. The case that had begun with a single missing phone had now spiraled into something far larger, something that smelled of money, power, and control. Rachel Meyer had tried to expose corruption, and now, the very people she had trusted at work had turned the truth into another crime buried under silence. Months passed before any sign of progress appeared. The investigation had grown cold, the news cycle had moved on, and the town of Brookfield had started to forget. Then, without warning, something extraordinary happened. Rachel Meyer's phone number, long inactive, suddenly reappeared on the network. The signal was faint, bouncing off several towers before stabilizing near an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of town. Detective Holden and her team raced to the location, expecting another dead end, but this time they found a prepaid phone connected to Rachel's cloud account. Someone had turned it on deliberately. When the technicians accessed the device, they uncovered a series of encrypted audio files automatically backed up from Rachel's original phone. The files were dated the night she disappeared. As each clip played, a clearer picture began to form. Rachel's voice filled the room, nervous, quick, and whispering into her recorder app. She described being followed after leaving the office, noticing a black sedan behind her for several miles. She mentioned pulling over near Miller's Creek to make a call to someone she trusted. The last file ended abruptly after the sound of a car door closing and footsteps approaching. Then came silence. Hidden among the recordings was another voice, a man's, faint but recognizable after analysis. It was Cameron Lee. Investigators confirmed it through his company voicemail records. The discovery tied him directly to Rachel's final moments. 2 days later, Cameron was spotted by Border Patrol near Canada, traveling under a false identity. When police apprehended him, he carried a bag filled with cash, fake documents, and a flash drive wrapped in tape. Inside that flash drive were the missing files Rachel had been trying to send the night she vanished. The contents were explosive. They detailed a money laundering scheme involving Merritt and Sons Development, several local officials, and environmental violations covered up by falsified reports. The documents also revealed payment trails leading directly to Cameron, proving he had received bribes to falsify company records. For months, he had been erasing digital traces linking the firm to its crimes, and when Rachel discovered the truth, he panicked. He lured her into meeting him that night, claiming he could help her go public safely. Instead, she disappeared after that meeting, and her phone was destroyed until fragments of it resurfaced to tell her story. Under interrogation, Cameron refused to speak. His silence only deepened the mystery of what truly happened to Rachel. Despite exhaustive searches, her body was never recovered. However, the evidence she left behind was enough to dismantle the powerful network she had been fighting against. Merritt and Sons lost its contracts, executives were arrested, and investigators uncovered a long history of fraud stretching back years. In the end, Rachel's voice, preserved in those final recordings, became the foundation of the entire case. Her determination, even in fear, ensured that the truth could not be buried. When her phone stopped ringing, everyone thought the silence meant an ending. But in reality, it was only a pause before her voice came back louder than ever, echoing through courtrooms, news broadcasts, and the memories of those who would never forget the woman who refused to stay quiet.